Hello aspirants, welcome to Grace IS. So in today's session, I'll be talking about the very basics of constitution, that all of us know that there is a constitution. We know there is a constitution of India, and there is also the constitutions in almost all the country of the world. They have certain constitutions. So basically, what is the need and what is the requirement of the constitution? That's what we are going to discuss in this session. Why do we need constitution? Or what is the requirement of the constitution? What is the function of the constitution? So that is what we are going to discuss in this session. And at the end also we'll see one prelims questions from this section. So let's see that why do we need a constitution? So before the requirement of constitution, we'll discuss the basic of what is constitutions, and then we'll talk about what are its functions, how does it relate to our daily existence, why is it so important. So let's look one by one. So let's see what is the constitution? What is constitution? So all of you know in a very simple term that it is a set of rules. It is set of rules which are fundamental in nature, which are basics and fundamental in nature, which are basics and fundamental in nature, which defines how the state would be constituted, how the state or the government of the country would be constituted, what are the powers, and if any there is limitations of the government, what are the powers, what are the limitation of the government, So the constitution not only defines that what is the nature of the polity or how the government would be constituted, but also it defines what are the limitations of the government. Basically a constitutional form of government means a limited government, because there is certain the areas which are being defined and the government cannot go beyond that, right? So what are the limitations, which is a very, very important function of the constitution. And then also it defines what is the faith and aspiration. What is the faith and aspiration of the people? Aspiration of the people. And constitution is so supreme. The constitution is supreme law of the land. Constitution is supreme law of the land. Supreme law of the land. What does it mean when I say that it is the supreme law of the land? That means that the constitution is above every law. Every law, the law made by the parliament, the law made by state legislature, and even customs and traditions has to abide by the constitution. Any customs which goes against the constitution, it can be declared null and void. Such custom has to be reformed. It won't have any validity. For example, the Supreme Court has allowed the women of all the age group, to the Sabrimala temple, right? Sabrimala temples. So if you are aware that in the Sabrimala temple, which is located in Kerala, it's a highly auspicious religious place of Hindus, and women of certain age group, they were not allowed to visit the temple, particularly who are menstruating. So during that period, the women were not allowed to visit the temple. So that that is being found as a discriminatory practices. That is found to be a discriminatory practices among discriminatory practices for women or against women. Against women. So that's the reason Supreme Court has tried to bring reforms in the traditions and customs, those customs which were being found as a discriminatory against a particular group of people, like in this case it is against women of particular age group. That's the reason the Supreme Court has tried to bring these customs in conformity with the Constitution, because the Constitutions under Article 14 says there is equality before law, right? Everybody is equal in the eye of the law. And Constitution has been given a supreme position. Any law made by Parliament or state legislature, and even the customs and traditions which are discriminatory or which violates the Constitution, can be declared null and void, or can be, in case of the customs, the Supreme Court can prescribe for the reforms. So that's the example I gave you in the Sabrimala case. Now it is being allowed, the women of all the age groups, they are allowed to visit the temple, which was early very, very discriminatory. Similar way, you know that under Article 17, untouchability has been abolished. Untouchability has been abolished. So this was also very discriminatory practices against certain caste groups, which has been abolished by the Constitution itself. So untouchability is an offense. So all this basically is to show that the supremacy of the constitutions. These are the basic and fundamental law of the country, and it is also supreme. All the laws, all the traditions, all the custom must to be valid, must conform to the Constitution. That is what the significance of the Constitution, that anything which is discriminatory, anything which is unwanted, undesirable in the society, that should be banned. That should be banned. So let's see, we just talked about the definition of Constitution, that what is Constitution. It is the set of rules which are basics and fundamental, and it is also the supreme law of the land. When I say supreme law of the land, means all other laws which are made by the Parliament or state legislature, and not only the laws, the rules, bylaws, notices, any policies of the government, and even the customs and tradition must conform to the Constitution to be legally valid. And it defines how the state would be constituted. So we know that we are a parliamentary form of government, isn't it? We are a parliamentary form of government. We are a federal, we have a federal features where the power is being distributed between center and state. Parliamentary form of government means where the executive comes from the legislature itself. There is a dual membership, right? Unlike the presidential system where there is a kind of more separation of power, the executive, legislature and judiciary, there is much more separation of power. In case of the parliamentary form of government, the executive, that is the ministers, they are very much member of the parliament. They have to be the member of parliament, either directly elected or indirectly elected, or within 6 months they have to become the member of parliament. So the executive, they very much are the part of the legislature. So that's what the dual membership, that is what we have adopted, that is a parliamentary form of government. The details of parliamentary form of government and the federal form of government, the features and its significance, all will be dealing in a separate session. So as of now, that is what you understand, that the constitution basically talks about that what is the nature of our Indian polity, how the government is being constituted, and what are the powers, limitations of the government. And the constitution also talks about the faith and aspiration of the people, that what people aspire to, or what kind of society people want. So we want a society where there is a freedom, where there is a liberty of thought, expression, belief, worship. There is a justice which is political and social in nature, where there is equality of status and opportunity. So these things are inspired in our or contained in our preamble, right? The faith and aspirations, which are very much part of the Indian constitution, right? So the Indian constitution also contains the faith and aspiration of the people. So that is what the aim of, what is the aim of the people during the freedom struggle, you know, when we didn't had any civil liberties, we were being suppressed, we were being oppressed. So we had a vision, we had certain vision that what kind of society we'll have after independence. So that is what the constitution has ingrained in it, and they try to achieve, which is a part of the preamble, as well as we have you know, in the fundamental rights, which is more enforceable in nature. And we have already spoken that it is the supreme law of the land. All the laws, all the customs, traditions to be legally valid must conform to the constitution. It must align to the constitution. It cannot go against the constitution. If it goes, then it will be declared null and void. I hope till here you got the clarity that what is constitution. So now let's look into what is the function of constitution, or why constitution is needed. That is what the topic of the day, that why constitution is needed. What is the utility of the constitution? So you can see in the picture that people of diverse religious groups are there. So in India, you know, India is a very, very diverse country. In fact, almost all the country of the world, they are diverse in one way or the other. But India is diverse so much in terms of religion, in terms of races. Right. So India is diverse, very, very diverse, in terms of religion, in terms of races, in terms of language, right? So we are a multicultural society. There are some majority community, there are some minority community. In terms of religion, in terms of language, in terms of religion, in terms of language, people are, you know, belong to some minority communities, some belongs to majority community. In terms of religion, in terms of languages, and then also in terms of races, we are very, very varied and diverse society. So imagine what if the majority community try to overpower the minority community, or you know, when there is a disagreement among people, how it will be resolved, isn't it? How the people of diverse community, they will coordinate with each other, because when we stay together, it's very important that we coordinate with each other. We live in harmony, we live in peaceful, right? Peaceful coexistence is required. So what is the system which will allow a peaceful coordination? What is the system that would protect the minority from the majority domination, right? Or some set of understanding among all the communities that what are your rights, what are your obligations, isn't it? So the first function of the Indian, any constitution for that matter, it is to provide set of basic rules. There should be certain basic rules. There should be certain basic rules which will allow minimal coordinations among the people, so that they can live in a society in a harmony that would result in peaceful coexistence, where the conflict can be, resolved. Conflict can be resolved. If somebody, wants to listen very loud music, or somebody, everybody, they have the freedom to pursue their own religion, pursue the way they want to dress up, they pursue the way they want to celebrate their festivals, isn't it? If imagine if somebody don't allow you to celebrate your festivals, or don't allow you to, or force certain kind of costumes or dress, that this is what everybody will be wearing. So your freedom of pursuing your religion, your tradition, your way of living, basically, everybody, they have the different way of living, particularly in India, where there is a lot of diversity. We have not only diversity in terms of, the man and women. That's almost every country they have man and women, but diversity more in terms of religion, in terms of races, in terms of language. What if there is one imposition of language that everybody throughout the country, they will speak one language? Right. So India being a multicultural society, the problem is even more, difficult to resolve. So that's why we need certain basic rules. We need certain minimum rules so that the members of society, they can coordinate among each other, they can live in harmony, there would be peaceful coexistence. That's the reason the constitution is required. So we have in the constitution that minorities rights being protected, isn't it? Minorities rights being protected, particularly article 29 and 30. See, article of the constitutions, that's very, very important. You must remember the articles of the constitution, the important article. And again, by going through the PYQ, you will understand what are the important articles which you are supposed to remember and supposed to understand. Of course, there are certain important articles. There are a lot of articles, like more than 455 articles in the Indian Constitution. So should you remember all the constitutions, all the articles of the constitutions, or there are certain important articles? So there are certain important articles which you need to focus more. That you will come through the course of your studies, you will come to know what are the important articles, and also by going through the PYQ, you will certainly identify those important articles. So article 29 and 30, minority rights. Then we have freedom of religion, isn't it? Freedom of religion, which is mentioned under article, article 25 to 28. Which is mentioned under article 25 to 28 regarding freedom of religion. Then discriminations, if there is any discrimination in the society, that has to be abolished. So we have article 14, right to equality, isn't it? Everybody is equal in the eye of law. Article 14 of the Indian Constitution talks about right to equality. Article 17, just now we have mentioned, that deals with abolition of untouchability. So any discriminatory practices that lowers the dignity of the people, See, some discriminations would be there in the society, that is called positive discrimination. We will be talking about those things also as we move forward. So there are, I mean, it's not like there is society, there is no discrimination at all, but those discriminations which lowers the dignity of the people should be abolished, right? Those discrimination between man and woman, discrimination based on caste, based on religion, based on languages, those kind of things which lowers the dignity of the individual should be abolished. So this is what we have understood, that the first function of the Indian Constitution or the Constitution per se, it is to provide a set of rules that would be helpful in setting or providing coordinations among the members of the society. They will know what is their rights, what is their duties, and what is their obligations. So, is it enough to have set of rules? Is it enough to have set of rules? Is it enough to have set of rules? Just we have set of rules, on the paper it is there. So enforceability of those rules, enforceability of the rules is important, right? Just if the Constitution has set of rules, but if they are not enforceable, what is the use of that? Right, it is just on paper, but not enforceable. It has no meaning whatsoever. So, what is the significance? That the Constitution has set of rules and they are enforceable. Of course, there are certain section of the Indian constitutions which are not enforceable. We will look into that. But the major part is enforceable, like fundamental rights. The fundamental rights are enforceable in nature. Yes, preamble, the provisions of preamble, they are not enforceable. But fundamental rights, they are enforceable, which are very, very important. Right, extremely important to protect the rights of the citizens, and that must be enforceable. So, the Constitution does not only contains the rules, but also says how it will be enforceable, the method of its enforceability, in what case those rules would be enforceable, right? So, you know that fundamental rights are enforceable in nature. If anybody violates the rights of the citizens, they will be enforceable, right? Right. So, I hope you understood the function of the Constitution. This is the first function, to provide set of rules for the minimal coordination among the various members of the society. Let's move to the second function. So, look at this picture. You can see that's a Parliament, and the discussions is being happening here, and the members of Parliament here. So the second function is the Constitution specify the decision making power. So now we know that there are set of rules, right, which are enforceable in nature, which is being provided by the constitutions. So the Constitution also tells that how the powers will be authoritatively allocated. How the authoritative power would be allocated, and who will make these decisions. So the Constitution talks about how the powers will be allocated among the various organs of the government or various organ of the state. So there is executive, there is legislature, there is judiciary, which are the three organs of the state, and the power is allocated. And we also know who is the decision making power for law making. It is the Parliament who makes the decision, isn't it? And in terms of states, since we have a federal form of government, we have at union, there is a system at the union level and also at the state level, isn't it? So in the law, it is the Parliament at the union level who makes the law. Executive, it is the ministries or the government who are the part of the executive. They will implement the law, and then if there is any disputes related to the laws made by the parliament, or if any arbitrary action is being taken by the executives which somewhere violates the rights of the citizens or causes harm to the citizens, and there is any conflict related that the proper procedure are not followed while making the laws, or the law is arbitrary in nature, all these conflict will be resolved by whom? By the judiciary, right? So it is the constitutions which provides us or specify that who will make what decision, how the powers is being allocated, and who are the deciding authority, how the decisions will be taken. So we have just seen that lawmaking, it is the parliament, the executive, the role is to implement the policies, and then judiciary, if there is any kind of disputes related where the rights of the citizens being violated, or the law itself is arbitrary in nature, it is unreasonable and it's arbitrary, which may take away the rights of the citizen, and any customs also which is discriminatory in nature. So any conflict in the society, that will be resolved through judiciary, right? Pertaining to the laws, traditions and customs, if there is any conflict, it will be resolved by the judiciary. So the constitution has given power to the judiciary to resolve the dispute. Article 32. So judiciary, the Supreme Court is being considered as the custodian of fundamental rights of the citizens. So if you have any fundamental rights being violated, you can go directly to the Supreme Court, right? So this is how I hope you understood that the constitution specify the decision making power, and also how the powers will be allocated. So like in 7th schedule, you know, like India being a federal country, the power is being distributed between union and state. So in the 7th schedule, there is a union list, there is state list, there is concurrent list. So this will contain, you know, who have what power, what is the power of the union, what is the power of the state, what is the common power between center and states in terms of concurrent list. So all these things are being specified in the constitution. Yes, I hope things are clear here. Shall we move to the next? Yeah. So the another function of the constitution is to provide limitation on the power of the government. See, the government can become authoritarian because they have lots of power. They have lots of power. If those powers are not being clipped, or if those powers are unrestrained, there is a tendency for the government to become authoritarian, because power corrupts. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it is said not by me, but Lord Acton. So according to Lord Acton, he said that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Power brings certain kind of corruption if it is unrestrained, if it is uncontrolled, isn't it? The civil liberties of people may be jeopardized, or the freedom of the people, the liberty of the people would be jeopardized if the powers is not controlled. The government can behave in an arbitrary manner as per their whims and fancies. which would jeopardize the rights of the people or freedom of the people, right? People's freedom may be at stake. That's what we have seen during the British period, isn't it? When we didn't have any fundamental rights, we didn't have a proper system of constitutions, we were being suppressed, we were being oppressed, isn't it? Tyrannical authoritarian rule was there because there was no constitution. So the basic function of the constitution is to provide limitation on the power of the government, and these powers are restriction in the terms of, you have fundamental rights. The government in no case violates the fundamental rights of the citizens, right? That is protected by the Constitution, Article 32 of the Indian Constitution, that is enforceability of the fundamental rights. Anybody whose fundamental rights are being violated, they can approach the Supreme Court directly. That is what the importance of fundamental rights, you know. The other rights, if violated, those rights which are not part of your fundamental rights, if those rights are being violated, like for example, right to property, which is no more of fundamental rights, then you have to move from the lower court, and by way of appeal, you can go to Supreme Court. But the fundamental rights are so sacrosanct that, and so important, that they have been given a very transcendental position, right? And directly you can approach Supreme Court. That is what the importance of or gravity of the fundamental rights, right? So it put limits on the power of the government. And also you must be knowing, I hope, that there is a concept of basic structure, basic structure. So the parliament, neither the parliament nor the government or the executive, they cannot go against the basic structure. The basic structure is basically is a device created by Supreme Court to restrict the powers of the government, so that the government should not have unlimited power. And one of the basic structure is also your fundamental rights. Now, what are the other basic structure? We'll again study in a separate chapter or separate session. So fundamental rights has been given very, very important position. The government cannot do away with or cannot violate the fundamental rights of the citizens, and that is one way of limiting the power of the government, right? I hope till here it's clear. So the in what way we limit the power of the government? Through, there are various provisions. One of the provision is that of the fundamental rights, and of course, the law made by parliament, any law made by parliament, they cannot go against the constitution itself. Whatever the provisions of the constitution, they cannot make any laws which goes against the constitutions. So that is what the law making power of the legislature, the executive functions in terms of implementation of those laws are being restricted, They don't have unlimited power to make, any kind of law or whatever the law. Any law which is arbitrary will be struck down. So, So there are certain situations where, fundamental rights can be restricted, but the ground of which has been mentioned in the constitution itself, like Article 352, that is during national emergency. During national emergency, your rights are being restricted, fundamental, but the ground of which it is mentioned in the constitution itself. It is not something which is arbitrary. Again, the government, as per their whims and fancies, they can take away the rights. It is during the national emergency, your rights. But again, Article 21 cannot be taken away. That is right to life and personal liberty. This provisions or this fundamental right cannot be taken away even during emergency. So that is what the sacrosanct nature of fundamental right. Right? I hope till here you got the clarity. What is the limitation on the power of the government? So let's look into the other aspect. Aspirations of the people. The Constitution also contains the aspirations of the people, what the people aspire. So as we have already spoken, we have already discussed that during the freedom struggle, we had certain vision that what type of society India would be. India would be a democratic society which would provide the citizens, which would provide its citizen. It would be a democratic country. It would be a sovereign country. It would be a secular country, not divided on terms of religion. Secular country. The people should have equality of status. The people should have liberty of faith, aspirations, liberty of thought, right? Liberty to worship. They should have justice, right? Both political and social justice. So these are the aspirations which are there contained in your preamble and also in your fundamental rights as well as directive principle of state policies. So these are where these aspirations of the people is being mentioned, and since it is mentioned in the Constitution, it casts an obligations on the part of the government to create such society, right? It casts an obligations on the part of the government to create such society. So there are a lot of things already mentioned in the fundamental rights which are very much enforceable, like liberty of thought and expression, isn't it? Article 19(1)(a), freedom of speech and expression, freedom to choose your professions, freedom to assemble, form association, right to equality, freedom of religion. All these are being mentioned in your fundamental rights, isn't it? So that is what the Constitution also contains. What are the faith and aspiration, what people visualizes as a society, and the Constitution casts an obligations on the authority to create such society. So which is also there in your directive principle of state policy. Directive principle of state policy that talks about that, Article 39B and Article 39C, that talks about that the resources should not be concentrated in few hand. The resources should not be concentrated in few hand, and the resources should be such distributed to serve the common good. Right? The resources should be distributed in such a manner to serve the common good, and that's the reason we had your Jamindari system was being abolished. Jamindari system was being abolished. We have a system of Land Ceiling Act. Then we have progressive taxation. What is all these mechanisms to make a society more balanced and more, the distribution of resources should be more balanced. It should not be like, somebody is too poor not to manage even the 2 meals of day, and somebody is so rich and the gap is so wide that they have all the resources, the rich have all the resources, and then poor people, they are dying under hungers and all. So such system should not be there. So state has to make some kind of provisions to take care of the weaker section of the society, right? And also distribute the resources in such a manner which would serve the common good. So we have a system of progressive taxation, right? Like direct tax. If your incomes are more, you will be taxed more, and those money will be utilized for the benefit of the poorer section of the society. You can't have unlimited land. There is a ceiling to that. So all these provisions were made to make the society more just, more fair, right? Equitable distribution of resources. So that is what we wanted, a society which is more just, which is more fair, and which is more towards equity and equality, which moves towards more equality and more equity in the society, rather than increasing the gap between rich and poor, or a society which is very, very unequal. So that is what the Constitution has made provisions to fulfill the aspirations of the people, right? Look at this. So you can see there's a people, a woman, man, and there is the India flag on the screen. So what does the Constitution does? It establishes the identity of the people. People in India, they can be divided in terms of religion, in terms of language, in terms of region. Right, we belong to Karnataka, we belong to Tamil Nadu, and we belong to Bihar, UP and all. So there are regional differences, there are linguistic differences, there are cultural differences, there are a lot of differences. There are a lot of differences. We may be divided on the basis of all these differences, but we are being united. We are being united by the Constitution. The Constitution gives us an identity that we all belong to India. We are the citizens of the country. We are the citizens of the country. And what we have? A common identity. We all are Indian. We all are Indian. So that is what establishes a common identity, that we all belong to one nation. Isn't it? So from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, there is one uniform law, there is one single citizenship. We have a single citizenship, that we all are Indian. Region wise, we may be Tamilian, we may be Kannadigas, we may be Bihari, we can be Odia, Bengali for that matter. But ultimately, we all are Indian, and that is what the Constitution ensures, that it establishes a common identity. It gives you an equal rights. All the citizens of the country, they have the equal rights and equal obligations, equal rights and equal obligations. So that is what the very important function of the Constitution is, to establish a common identity among the people, right? So we have a single citizenship, right, which ensures the fraternity, feeling of common brotherhood, that we all belong to same nation. We all belong to same nations. So these are the functions we have just discussed, or these are why the Constitution is required. These are the reasons why Constitution is required. So just let's have a recap. So this is what we have seen, the functions of the Constitution. Before that, we already have discussed what is the Constitutions, and this is what the function of the Constitutions, to provide such set of basic rules for minimal coordination amongst the member of society. Constitution specify the decision making power, who will make decision and what decision they will be making, like legislature, executive and judiciary, the three organs of the state. They have been given certain powers, and in their domain they will be making decisions. Limitation on the power of the government. So the Constitution also provides, the constitutional government means a limited government, because the Constitution defines the power of the government, right? It defines the power of the government, and they can't go beyond that. So that is what it provides, limitations on the power of the government. The Constitution also contains the faith and aspirations of the people, what kind of society people wants and how it will be built, that is being provided in the Constitutions. Finally, the Constitution helps in establishing the common identity of the people. So look at one previous year question of prelims in 2023. This question was being asked. Which one of the following statement best reflects the chief purpose of the constitution of a country? So I think it's simple. After discussion, you will be very easily able to mark this, the correct answer, or you will be able to choose the correct option from here. It determines the objective of making necessary laws. Yes, it is there. It enables the creation of political offices and government. Yes, it is there. It defines the limits on the power of the government. Yes, that also we have discussed. It secures social justice, social equality and social security. So even that is what the aim of the Indian Constitution or aim of the Constitution, right? But the question is about, you can't mark it all, isn't it? You have to choose one and all seems to be correct. So which one of the following statement, the best, the question is about the best reflects the chief purpose of the Constitution. So what we have just talked about, that of course it determines the objective of making necessary laws and all, who will make the decision and all, but the most important function of the Constitution, that it limits the power of the government, because constitutional form of government means limited government. Like in a monarchy, monarchy, there is unlimited power. A monarch has unlimited power. He or she is not bound by the Constitution. Wherever there is a monarchy, we are not talking about constitutional monarchy, which is prevalent in United Kingdom, where the monarch is being bound by the Constitution because it is constitutional monarchy. But if there is a monarchy kind of a system, not constitutional monarchy, simply monarchy. So like in ancient period, when India was in an ancient period, we were the monarchical system. Mostly the monarchical system was prevalent, or before the democracy came into being, the government system was mostly monarchy in nature. So in monarch, there is he is the ultimate power. A monarch has got ultimate power. He is the one what he will decide is correct and wrong. So if the monarch is good, the people will get a good governance. But imagine if the monarch is ruthless, cruel, then what type of governance the people will be getting? Bad governance, isn't it? So they will be on the mercy of the monarch. And they don't have a proper set of rights in a monarchical system or in an authoritarian system. But wherever the Constitution is prevalent, it limits the power of the government, because we have seen if there is unlimited power, the power tends to corrupt the people who are holding the power, right? So that's why there has to be certain kind of restrictions, certain kind of limitation on the power of the government. So the chief purpose of the Constitution is to define and limits the power of the government. That is what is also being done by the Indian constitutions. The government cannot take away or cannot violate the rights of the citizens, right? Or they can't go beyond basic structures which has been kind of created, or it's a tool created by the Supreme Court to restrict the power of the government. So already in the Constitution it has been mentioned that government cannot take away the right of the citizens. It limits the power of the government, right? So this is your answer. C is correct. So this is how so this question is very, very easy for somebody who had a very good conceptual clarity, but somebody have a little bit studied it in superficial manner. For them it will be like, okay, all the statements seems to be correct, all the statements seems to be correct, so they may mark something, this making necessary law is the chief purpose, or securing social justice is something which is very important feature of the Constitution. But actually it is the limits, it provides the limits on the power of the government. This is the chief function, and we have also seen in the function, right? One of the important function was that It provides limitation on the power of the government, right? So with this, we are winding up the session. We have done with the what is constitution, what are the necessary function, and we have also discussed on that basis, we have discussed this prelims question, that when you, this is what will be doing, whatever the session will be doing, will also try to bring the prelims or mains question or the both, so that you understand what is the, you should try to focus that from that topic what kind of questions can come or what question has already been come, so that you can streamline your preparation. So with this, we are winding up the session. Thank you so much, and then we'll be coming with some more session like this. Till then, take care. Have a good day.